We are now at the final chapter of our course, which is the endocrine system. For the endocrine system, it is the only system in our body that its organs are not directly connected. The glands are distributed in different parts along the body, and they are only communicating through blood stream. The glands of the endocrine system produce hormones, and hormones, you can think of them as chemical messengers. They circulate in the bloodstream, as we said, and they act on specific cells in the body or their target cells. And these cells, how do they know that these are the cells? Because these cells are having hormone receptors. As you can see, all of these, this image summarizes or has a list of all of the glands in our body. Now, the characteristics of hormones or the characteristics of the endocrine system, that hormones have access to every cell. Each hormone acts only on a specific cell, and only specific cells have the receptors for these specific hormones. Endocrine control is slower than the nervous system, and both endocrine and nervous systems are interact. This is a video about how hormones influence target cells. It's good to watch. Now, some hormones are participating in negative feedback loops. If you remember, the negative feedback aims to stop a certain stimulus. This is part of a homeostatic regulation. Negative feedback loops involve hormones, include the following. There is a set point that will be detected by the endocrine gland. Endocrine gland in this case would release a hormone that will target the cells, tissues, and organs. These are the effectors. And this would lead to reversal of the changes, returning that variable to the set point. Usually the target cells in this case are another gland, or could be a muscle, of course. And the control center would be the specific endocrine gland. This is another video about the hormonal feedback loops. Please watch it. Let's see now how some glands and their hormones are working. The first one is the hypothalamus, which is a region in the brain. Hypothalamus is, we can say, this is the homeostatic control center of the brain, and technically it links nervous system and endocrine system. The hypothalamus produces two hormones of its own, and it monitors and controls hormone secretions of the pituitary gland. Pituitary gland, we can say that this is the master gland. It secretes 8 different hormones that regulate other endocrine glands, and it has 2 lobes, posterior and anterior. For the posterior pituitary, they have the ADH and oxytocin, and technically these hormones are produced by the hypothalamus, but they are released by the posterior pituitary gland. The anterior pituitary produces 6 different hormones that they are targeting mainly other hormones in the rest of the body. Each one of these hormones has a certain function. For the posterior pituitary hormones, they are targeting organs, and they are causing specific effects within these organs. Now, as we said, for the posterior pituitary, we have 2 hormones. Both hormones, actually, as we said, both hormones are produced by the hypothalamus and stored within the posterior pituitary. So when there is a stimulation for the release, they will be sent down through the they will be released from the posterior pituitary and picked up by the bloodstream and distributed to their target cells. We're talking about oxytocin and ADH. Now, ADH is antidiuretic hormone. Write it. Antidiuretic hormone. This will conserve water, would stop urine formation, and it's very critical hormone that will control the hydration of water or hydration of the body, the amount of the water balance within our body. Oxytocin is a hormone that is regulating lactation or regulating the milk production, also produced by the posterior pituitary and targeting the mammary glands in the breast. For the anterior pituitary, it's also controlled by the hypothalamus, but here the hormones are produced within the hypothalamus. The hormones are produced within the pituitary gland, but their releasing or inhibition is controlled by the hypothalamus. For the posterior, they are produced in the hypothalamus. Posterior, the two hormones, the ADH and oxytocin, these are produced in hypothalamus. But for the anterior, no, the 6 hormones are produced in the pituitary gland, but the hypothalamus still can release them or inhibit the release. We have 6 hormones. We have the adrenocorticotropic hormones. This will target the adrenal cortex. The thyroid stimulating hormone will target the thyroid gland. Follicle stimulating hormone target ovaries and testes or testes. Luteinizing hormones, again targeting ovaries or testes. Prolactin targeting mammary glands. And the growth hormone technically can target every single cell in the body, but mainly it targets the skeletal muscles and the bone. And again, their releasing or inhibition is controlled by the hypothalamus, and once the orders are arrived, they'll be released into the bloodstream. This is an animation about the hypothalamus and pituitary gland, would summarize what we talked about and add some animation to it, so please watch it. Now, for the pituitary gland, as it is a master gland in our body, deficiencies in it would cause several diseases. For example, deficiency in ADH production, hyposecretion of ADH production would lead to a disease called diabetes insipidus. It means that the body has less ability to conserve water, and it will cause excessive urination, dehydration, and thirst. So this is for ADH. Hyposecretion of growth hormone in childhood would lead to something called gigantism. Patients are huge. They have huge and very tall body size. That is the gigantism. Acromegaly, this is excessive growth hormone production over long period of time in adults. Gigantism is in childhood, acromegaly in adults. Then we have the pituitary dwarfism, hyposecretion of growth hormone, and this would lead to short or very short tall of the body size. And usually it is treated by administration of growth hormone throughout the childhood. I will stop here, then we will come back in a second video to talk about the pancreas and some other glands.